a lot of students I work with who are preparing for ministry, they're coming into church contexts, and we go through these scenarios where we're thinking, okay, say there's a homeless person who comes into your church, smells of alcohol and sits back in the back seats of the church, beside a family with some kids. Like, what is your response to that situation? And especially churches who don't necessarily have the experience of being a church in downtown core, for example, or it doesn't happen often, because we realize that homelessness and all of the populations, low income are spreading into the suburbs, into the different places. And so when you think about that and you look at people who are trying to navigate how to start with this, you've been in the world where like it seems you literally live in that situation. Do you have any thoughts to churches who are trying to navigate how to make those first steps to figure out how that will be? Because later on, like, there's a mature version of that, but there's also an initial part of that as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of I don't know if I have wisdom in terms of process or steps. I wish those were easy answers. But what I can say from experience is I think I've seen over and over that it's possible to like rewire our brains in a sense. In something that makes us really nervous can just become normal. And so I see that mostly in the families that come to Romero House. Like if you think of someone who's had to flee for their lives, they have a lot of reasons not to trust other people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have come from situations where like they don't even know who their enemy is, like who, like they receive threats and they don't know who they've received them from. Like there's a lot of reason to be afraid of other people. And so come to an environment where we are asking them in their home where their children live to just blindly trust all of these people that they don't really know yet. And that's why I think it's scary for many people at the beginning. And we even have families who that's a non-negotiable thing and that they choose not to move into Romero House. Not that many. I think most people are so desperate for housing, they take it. Yeah. But for most families, I think that's a big adjustment. But by the time they move out of Romero House, it's just normal to share a community where we choose to trust each other. And so I think for me, what that is it's just an example of how it is possible to shift the way that we think about other people so that our first impulse is not suspicion, but like to shift. So our first impulse is trust, like that. Like our instinct is to trust people versus to be afraid of them.
Yeah, and that's been like a buried instinct, in our culture today, right? Like to actually have that instinct be the first thing. It's like, no, I can't do that because it feels a little reckless to do that at first. But I feel like there's a lot to what you're saying, because what I'm hearing from you too is that there's two sides. There's number one, a rewiring of, say, for myself, of the giver, or the person who's engaging and the person who's receiving in a way. And we want to take away that kind of dichotomy as much as possible. But there is that sense of rewiring there, and rewiring of in your context, the refugees who are coming. In a way, there's two different things that are happening. And I remember one thing I think Miroslav Volf was saying is that when it comes to embrace, he has these different steps of embrace. And one of them is like, you hold out your arms, but you don't fully embrace and like grab on until the person enters the embrace. There has to be like an entering of an embrace, and it can't just be like, that would just be violent if you just grab someone and bring them in. Has to be like some waiting period, and that waiting period at times I have found difficult to wait, because you're like, hey, look, I'm here. I'm like, come on, doors are unlocked, it's fine, just come in, and then pull them in. But it takes time for people to have to rewire, to see someone. I've had many times